solvency, T-spec. What?
What did you say the last thing?
T-spec. Ready? Okay, we're going right down the flow on the petro-euro. Our first argument of how there's no internal link, about the 3 months without Saudi backlash, and they say for this that there's no time for backlash to happen. Yet when you look at this, we've had military commissions for the past 5 years, and in 2001 when Bush first started using military commissions, therefore there is adequate amount of time. We're talking about 3 months, with no Saudi backlash after this military commissions act and such. They misunderstood this. You can flow through this argument of how we've had military commissions for almost 3 months now with no Saudi backlash. They like the U.S. too much to avoid to react negatively, and then you can group their arguments next about talking about how the Saudi are scared of us, and so that's why they're not doing any of these things. Yeah, you can cross-apply our Mandelman 06 from our solvency. This was our third card on solvency. This is an amazing card. It's talking about how the Saudis actually like us. Here, let me get you that card. Darn. Yeah, right here about we said of an established friendly military association with the governments in most of the major oil-producing countries and it has extended military protection to the largest of them, Saudi Arabia. Despite deep cultural, social, and political differences between the two countries, the United States and Saudi Arabia managed in the 20th century to establish a partnership that controlled the global market for this indispensable commodity. This last sentence was in the card. Didn't read that first, but now we're introducing that of how the United States and Saudi Arabia managed to establish a partnership that controlled the global market for this indispensable commodity. These two are partners, and thus when Saudi Arabia and the US like each other so much, working with them, you can group all their arguments. Those don't make sense. You can extend through our second argument with the no internal link that the United States is the only thing keeping the Middle East alive right now. It's keeping them stable, even with the Iraq situation now. In our third argument about how the Saudis engage in worse practices against their own prisoners, that they won't do anything but lip service against U.S. commissions. You can go to our fourth point about how this open shift to the euro will collapse the global economy. Let's see. Okay, they try to put on a card here about how the euro will be good for the economy. Yet they're talking about in this card, they're talking about if this happens gradually. In the card, it's talking about gradually, but yet this is going to happen quickly. They're saying that within a year at least that this is going to happen. So therefore, you can extend through our Harris 03 because it's talking about an immediate shift to the euro will cause this. And you can extend also through our Mandelman 06 that's talking about how the euro might one day. This is what the card that I was talking about in class examination. That's really good. You can start this card. It's the second card on the solvency. Mandelbaum 06 saying how the euro might one day be a really stable thing. It's not likely to actually be switched to that, but if they do, but not now. It's talking about in the long future that if there's a long process. So therefore, their argument here does not pass. And the U.S. economy is key to the world economy. Straits times 05. The world is overly dependent on a huge engine of growth. The United States, but much of Europe is in the doldrums. China is too dependent on the U.S. market.
Read more of them.
And the U.S. economy is key to the global economy, cut in 96. Also to the epicenter of the global economy when the United States airs, the global economy airs. And the U.S. is critical to the global economy, New York Times 2000, because America has been the most powerful engine of global growth in recent years. Its weakness has been a greater impact. Economic growth in the United States accounted for 30% of total global growth between 1997 and 2000. The access of America's 22% share of the world's GDP. You can
extend 5, 6, and 7, which are the same thing.
You can extend points 5, 6, and 7 on the petro-euro flow because they're all basically talking about the same thing there of how the U.S. economy is key. And you can drop down to their arguments, numbered 1, 2, 3, of how the nuclear war leads to a decrease in econ. And yes, there are impacts that we have said in our case are immediate. These impacts, with nuclear war and such, and with extinction, those are fast. Our time frame is fast. When you look at theirs, the time frame, they have to switch to the euro immediately to actually solve for this economic collapse, to actually solve for this nuclear war. So thus, when they do not switch to the euro immediately, they do not have this stability that will actually accept this, that will actually decrease, will take away this economy impact. Their second part about the space war with China will be worse. Yet, when you look at it again, we're talking about the time frame of the impacts, that their time frame, they aren't going to be able to solve for any of these things because they cannot switch to the euro immediately because this immediate shift will collapse the economy, which basically turns their case. And the third argument about that collapse will not cause war, this was Dunby 91, but again here, in the card, it's saying that economic decline does not produce conflict. This is exactly what read. How societies respond to economic decline may largely depend upon the rate at which such declines occur. When they're talking about the rate is the most important thing in here. So therefore, when you look at the rate, they say it's going to happen like almost immediately, within a year, definitely. So therefore, that is happening very fast. therefore, their card, they're going against their card. The economic collapse does not produce conflict. So therefore, when you look at that, you're saying that they actually do produce conflicts with that economic collapse. Moving on to solvency. They basically had just one argument in here, didn't really address any specific cards about it. Talked that mini nukes impacts the hedge battle leads to prolif, but again, they have no time frame given. That we have the time frame, we have, it's very immediate because when you do this, when you take away the independence from the judges and you have these human rights violations, and we have nuclear war on another side with it, the impact of extinction. So therefore, they need to give you the time frame in their cards. They do not have this to show that their impact is worse. So you can flow through our first card, which is mainly just talk about apolarity and how it's really bad. The warrants to this card are amazing. They're talking about religious institutions, about loneliness of military, technology, about technology increase, all these things, anarchy, economic repression, and terrorists. All these things that are really bad about about if we switch. If we lose hedge and have an apolar world, and as we said before, extend through our second and third cards, that are amazing calls to Metalbound 06, saying that respectively the global economy and then oil supply, and extend through our world security. And quickly on the T-spec, their standards with A ground, they're basically requiring us to read new cards to do what they need to do. This is a waste of our time. And 2, their education was broad education, which now is good specific education, which we're advocating. And second, and the third point on there is that's key to F.
That's time.